My name is Adam. This story happened to me about 3 years ago when I was 22. I used to know this woman named Mag. Mag was my doctor. I visited Mag whenever I was sick or wanted a checkup. Most of the doctors that I met in the doctor's office were real rude and, well, in general, were just really a bunch of jerks. But Mag wasn't like that. She wasn't like that at all. Meeting Mag, the first thing I noticed about her is how hype she was. Clingy, even. She seemed like a very kind woman, so I decided to give her a shot. And it turns out we became the best of friends. Me and her would talk about personal things to each other. I would tell her about my personal stuff and she would tell me about hers. It felt like we were so connected, like best friends. Fast forward maybe a day or two after this. I still see Mag as my doctor, and well, I finally meet this girl that I really fell in love with the first moment I saw her. She was very bright, intelligent, and artistic. I decided to shoot my shot and ask her out on a date. She said yes, and I, well, hopped with excitement. I decided to tell Mag about my encounter with this girl and what I asked her. Feeling that she would have the same reaction as I did, I told her. She didn't have the same reaction as I did. There was this pause. And this just wasn't any little tiny pause, like she skipped a second and then just went back to talking. No, this pause lasted 15 seconds. She just stared at me with a blank expression on her face. She had gone pale and her eyes, her eyes were completely different. Like there was nothing behind those eyes. Like no one was staring back. But for some reason I felt like she was looking right through me. I kinda got uncomfortable and started asking her if she was okay. On the dime, her demeanor changed like she was a different person. She kind of stood up a little bit and gave this awkward little smile and just said, "Well, Adam, believe it or not, I'm happy for you. It's nice to know you're finally getting out there with someone. But do be careful though. You never know what type of women are out here these days, especially in these times." And I brushed it off as her just trying to, well, protect me, considering she was right. A lot of women these days are not exactly what you would expect. But it was just something about that pause. The way she stopped. She acted like it didn't even happen. In fact, that whole conversation after that was completely just weird. After the checkup, I went home and, well, I asked her to give me a prescription and she did. Now, in order to give a prescription, they sometimes ask you about your, well, address. She knew my address and knew exactly where I lived. So if I didn't go to the pharmacy to pick up my medicine, it would be sent to my house. Fast forward to the night of the date. I was so happy that I wanted to make sure that I was perfectly good for this date. Now, as I'm getting ready, I get a knock on my door. Now, I wasn't expecting anything, nor was I expecting anyone to come here, considering I said that I would pick her up. But not thinking too much of it, I went to answer the door. And to my surprise, it was Mag. She was standing on the porch, waiting for me, with this big grin on her face. This grin didn't appear to be creepy, it just looked off. Usually, when she gives me a grin, it's happy and cheerful and so excited. But it looked like that, but the curves, the end, was crooked, like she's just been smiling this whole time. Like she's been smiling on her way from the doctor's office or wherever she came from, all the way to my house. She looked tired and sweaty, as if she's just been running somewhere or working out. Then I asked her why did she come to my house out of confusion and, well, a little bit suspicious. She just said I just wanted to check up on you and ask how you were doing. Now, Mag knows my phone number, so I find this to be strangely creepy, considering she didn't call my phone. That should have been my first red flag, but, well, I just brushed it off. She asked if she could come in to give me just one more checkup before I went to my date. And I said, well, sure, why not? But then something crossed my mind. I told her that I was going on a date, but I never told her when. How did she know that it was today? Maybe I told her, or maybe I didn't. I didn't really know, but I didn't try to think too much about it. But that wasn't the weird part. The weird part is that when she got there, she didn't have like a kit. A kit is usually something that doctors bring when they go to a patient's home, usually for when they do checkups. But I didn't see any sort of kit with her. I mean, she didn't even go back to the car to grab one. She walked in and sat on my couch and started chatting. Now, the chat lasted for maybe about 5 minutes, but I told her that I really need to get on my way and when are we going to do the checkup? She told me, well, we're going to do it now. And she got up, came up to me, and out of nowhere, she fluently and swiftly took out a needle and shoved it into my arm. I was not expecting that. It was so fast and fluid. I didn't ever knew she could be so fast. But as soon as the liquids was pumped into my arm, I felt dazed. I began to get drippy and fall out. But right before I closed my eyes, I heard Max say, "That girl can't be trusted. She's not safe. You can only be safe with me." I am a 30-year-old male. I am a doctor. I used to work in a hospital in downtown Los Angeles. In the city of LA, I've come across some pretty strange people in my life, but none of them could compare to Alice. Alice wasn't strange, she was just something completely different. Alice came into the hospital as a new nurse. We welcomed her with open arms, and well, she was very comforting and very artistic and seemed to be very nice. Well, at least we thought. I decided to take her under my wing as well as an assistant. She seemed very cheerful to be my assistant, considering that we've just met and, well, other doctors seemed more, well, nicer than I was. She would frequently help me with patients and, well, helping me set up documents and paperwork. But there was something strange about how she acted towards the other staff. I mean, around male staff, she, well, make up a little bit of a fuss whenever I was talking to them. But with female staff, it was almost aggressive. One day I had a conversation with one of the nurses, talking about the weather and all. Later that day, I was on my way back to the front office when I noticed that Alice was screaming at the nurse that I was talking to that day. Now, the way Alice presented herself was timid and very, well, cute and adorable even. She was only 19 years old and, well, I thought she would be perfect for the job. But when I saw her going on that nurse, it was like psychopathic behavior. And it was very disturbing seeing it come from a 19-year-old girl. I mean, the face that she made. She always had a very adorable, cutesy baby face, but it contorted into something almost malicious. animalistic even. It was disturbing just to see it even from far away. I can only imagine the nurses seeing it from up close. Seeing how Alice was treating the nurse, I did not like it, so I confronted her about it later that night. Alice just shrugged and said, "Well, I didn't really like how the way she was talking to you earlier, so I wanted to make sure she wasn't doing anything to cause you any trouble." I was confused. What way did she think she was talking to me? She didn't say anything rude or say anything to upset me. So I just said, okay, fine, and, well, just left the office. Later that night, I received this text on my phone saying, "I'm sorry for making you upset." It came from Alice. Now, all of us have each other's phone numbers just in case we need to get in contact with each other. And if we didn't have each other's phone numbers, all of our phone numbers would be listed in a list full of nurses and doctors. I knew she didn't have my phone number, but somehow she did, which means she must have went to the list to get it. I was confused to why she was calling me and texting me late at night. And the next morning when I went to bed, I woke up and checked my phone and I had about 25 messages in text from Alice. She was saying like, "Why aren't you answering me?" and "I'm sorry for if I upset you," or there was other comments like, "You better not be seeing that nurse behind my back," or even other comments like threats saying, "If you don't answer this phone, I'm going to break into your house and slit your throat." I was completely creeped out and even scared by these comments. Alice seems such a nice girl, timid even. But seeing how she went wailing on that nurse from these texts and her strange demeanor when I confronted her about the nurse, it completely told me right then and there that I was messing with someone I don't want to be involved with. I stopped having her as my assistant and just carried on my day. She kept trying to get my attention, but I would just never really say anything. It got to the point where she stopped asking me anything and, well, it started to become gifts. I would get these oversized teddy bears and little boxes of chocolate with these notes attached to them saying, "I apologize, please take me back, give us a second chance," etc., etc. Now, I knew this had to be Alice. I didn't have any exes and, well, I never really dated anybody, well, formally or nor previously before this, so I knew it was her. She had this fixation on me saying that we were meant to be together in some of these letters. Some of these letters would get very graphic and say very inappropriate things that no nurse should be saying to a doctor in general. It got to the point where I had to report her, and in result, they just gave her a slap on the wrist. I mean, even though I told them about the threat she gave me about slitting my wrist one night, they just slapped her hand and just said, "Well, she hasn't done anything. There's nothing we can do." This completely made me angry inside, but I just had to just deal with it. And besides, they were right, she hasn't done anything, so there's nothing they can really do. I continued on working with Alice and the other co-workers. But something happened one day. On my way back home from the hospital, a car pulled up. A window rolled down and Alice was in the passenger seat of the car, and in the driver's seat was this random girl. I'm guessing it was one of Alice's friends, and she asked if I needed a ride. I told her no, I'm completely fine, but Alice completely disagreed with me and insisted that I get in the car with her. She told me that she can drop me off at the house and, well, nothing would happen. I knew that saying no to Alice wouldn't really do me any good, knowing that she would just continually carry on. So I decided to just take a deep breath in and said yes, and I hopped in the passenger seat in the back. She didn't say anything for the longest of time, and it was just this silence, except for the roaring of the engine of the car. I remember vividly something odd about the car. The car was tan and it had a back seat, but one of the back seats had this big box in it. Now, in this box, it was kind of slightly opened. I remember I had looked over at the box and noticed that there was like this sort of leaking fluid coming out of it. I kind of got a little curious and looked in the box. What I found floored me. It was the dismembered head of the nurse that talked to me that one night, the night that Alice went completely haywire on her. Alice saw that I was looking and she said, "Did you like it? It was supposed to be a present for your upcoming birthday." I completely wanted to get out the car and I started screaming at her to pull over, and I asked her, why would you even do this? She said, "It's supposed to be for you. I thought you would be happy to know that she was gone. She was bothering you anyway, so why would you be mad about this?" And I completely just freaked, and I tried to duck and roll out of her car, but her friend was smart enough to lock it. I was trapped in there with two crazies in front of me, and there was nothing I could do. You're probably wondering right now, why didn't I just take out my phone to call the police? I was completely panicking at the time, and I didn't know what to do with a dead body in the back seat with me. I was completely just afraid and scared. It got to the point where I couldn't think straight. I couldn't even think of a way to get out besides just duck and roll out the car, but I couldn't because her friend had locked the door. The friend had turned over and looked at me and said, "There's no problem, is it? Alice just wants to get to know you a little bit better. Wouldn't it be nice for you to take this chance and ask her out?" I said, "You two are completely delusional if you think I'm going to ever go out with Alice." Alice got real mad and pulled out a gun, pointing it at me and saying, "You are my doctor. You are the only doctor that's ever been kind to me at that office. And to hear you say those words are completely unlike you. Like I said, that nurse has been filling your head with lies about me, hasn't she? She's been telling you things about me." It felt like I was in a Lifetime movie. I didn't know what to do. I was completely scared. This girl had a gun pointed to my head. And I had a thought. What if I did something that, well, it could potentially get me killed in the process, but it would stop the car? I decided to, well, come behind the driver's seat and start choking Alice's friend out. Alice had the gun pointed at me, yelling at me to stop, until I had rolled on my back and kicked the gun out of her hand. It flew out the window, and I completely had her friend at my mercy. I told her to pull over the car, and she did, and I told her to unlock it, and she did. I busted out of the car, running, screaming for help, and someone pulled over. And beyond belief, it was a police officer. I told them that they tried to kidnap me, and I kicked the gun out of their hand. They threatened to kill me, and there was a dead body in the back seat. Alice and her friend were shaking, and they knew it was over. The police checked the back and saw the body. He nearly screamed and dropped his flashlight. He arrested the two girls on the spot. More police showed up. I was, interrogated by the police officer, wondering what was going on and wanted to get my side of the story. Because from what the girls were saying from the other room, they said I'm the one who killed her. I knew that was a load of bull, and I told them that. I did not do it. I've complained about Alice to the authorities before. I forgot to mention that about that text, I actually told the police that she threatened to slit my neck, but they said they couldn't do anything about it because she hasn't actually done anything. But now that she did do something like murder and attempted kidnapping, they had the charges to charge her with. They could put her away for life. Well, I could say that this is the scariest story that's ever happened to me. I've had a few in my lifetime, but this is by far the scariest. I've never encountered anyone like Alice before, ever. I mean, I've encountered some weirdos here and there, but no one like Alice. She went way beyond than anyone else has ever did. Alice, let's never meet again.